Minister Duclos, what is the future for vaccine mandates?
The future for vaccine mandates?
Yeah, is there ever a time in the country? Of course, I'm not talking about the demands of these protesters, but I'm saying in general, for federal workers, for truckers, is there a future where they won't have to face a vaccine mandate? Is there, scientific sort of bar where it's no longer effective in terms of a public health policy? Is there an off-ramp here for these vaccine mandates?
Well, as we all know, we're focused on the emergency, on the pandemic, and we know that vaccination works. A very large number of Canadians have made the right choice. We also know that because of that, a large number of Canadians are protected, and that's why we're going through Omicron better than many other countries in the world. So for the time being, we're focused on the pandemic and the emergency context, and the vaccination mandate is a key part of that.
Is the mandate proving effective to get people vaccinated?
Qui disent qu'ils ne s'en iront pas tant et aussi longtemps que les mandats ne seront pas levés. Bonjour, M. Miller.
Candace Bergen has compared some of the Nazis in the crowd to the Indigenous protesters that have toppled statues and burned churches. Is that acceptable?
Who did?
Candace Bergen.
What did she do?
She likened the Nazis in the convoy to the Indigenous protesters who have toppled statues. That was a few days ago.
Well, you know that's ridiculous.
What are your thoughts on it?
That's ridiculous.
Why is it ridiculous?
I mean, you know exactly why it's ridiculous.
Can you expand on it?
It's absolutely obscene to suggest there's any parallel. I don't think I have anything else to add. It's nuts. Anyway.
She's now the leader of the Conservatives.
Well, let her do what she does. She also wears a MAGA hat. But anyway, let her try her chance.
Sir, what do you think needs to happen to de-escalate the situation and bring it to a peaceful resolution?
I think the truckers need to go.
But how do you achieve that is what
They need to get in their cars and go. They got here, they need to leave.
But how do you de-escalate? I mean, they're asking for demands that it seems the government's not willing to talk to, but how do you de-escalate the situation?
They need to turn their horns off and leave, quite simply. It's time for them to go.
But they're refusing to, so
I understand that.
So we're at an impasse then.
Yes.
How do you get past
Well,
that?
you've seen city police take a different posture, and there's always an engagement that is measured in terms of the public security response. But you should speak in more depth to the police commissioner in Ottawa and then Minister Menachie.
L'idée qu'on déploie l'armée, vous en pensez quoi?
Ben, l'armée, c'est pour des temps de guerre puis des urgences. Donc, il y a tout un processus avant ça. Donc, on est bien loin de ça, très franchement.
Quand on parlait, ça n'ira nulle part tant et aussi longtemps que le gouvernement ne reculera pas. Vous leur dites quoi à ces gens-là?
Il est temps qu'ils parlent, qu'ils se fassent vacciner puis qu'ils parlent.
Une dernière question en français.
What about being removed by force? This idea that the army should be called in.
This is something that is not done by politicians. It's done by the police services, and in this case, the police of jurisdiction, which is provincial.
Quand on parlait des manifestations autochtones il y a 2 ans, là, M. Trudeau...
Ben, il y a toute une ironie, évidemment, parce que il y a 2 ans, c'est les mêmes personnes, incluant M. Scheer, qui réclamaient l'armée rentre à Terre-Nénéga dans une situation très, très, très différente. Donc, je pense qu'ils ont une introspection, une réflexion à l'interne à faire, parce que c'est l'hypocrisie totale de leur part.
Mais à l'inverse, M. Trudeau, il y a 2 ans, disait on n'enverra pas l'armée sur les civils. Aujourd'hui, il a dit on étudie toutes les demandes.
Il n'a pas dit ça.
Ben oui, il a dit ça.
Non, il n'a pas dit ça.
Il a dit qu'on n'enverrait pas l'armée.
Il y a un processus d'engagement, puis l'armée, c'est une instance de dernier recours, comme vous le savez très bien, puis on n'est même pas rendu là.
The residential school in Spanish Ontario was run by the Jesuits. I'm just wondering if they've been helpful.
Say that again.
The Spanish Ontario residential school is only one run by the Jesuits, not the Oblates. Have they been collaborative with documents?
So far, so good. You know, it's actually timely that you asked that, Dylan, because we just announced funding for the Spanish residential schools. There are many communities that were sent there, so that's something that we'll be working with the community. But I think there's a lot of members there are a lot of survivors and their families that are looking for answers. But that's a recent development that we rolled out yesterday, and so we'll be working with them. I don't have any information to suggest that they haven't been cooperative, and all my contacts with the Jesuits has been very, very, very cooperative.
Si je peux me permettre juste une dernière question, vous avez fait référence à la casquette de Mme Bergen, Make America Great Again.
Oui.
Ça veut dire quoi? Que
je pense que vous savez exactement ce que ça veut
dire.
Non,
mais ça veut dire quoi que le parti l'ait choisi?
Tant que aussi longtemps que le gouvernement ne reculera pas, on va rester ici. D'abord, vous savez comme moi que même si le gouvernement fédéral enlevait l'obligation vaccinale pour les camionneurs du côté canadien, ils ne pourraient pas rentrer aux États-Unis parce qu'il y a la même obligation du côté américain. Et le gouvernement fédéral n'est pas responsable des obligations qui sont mises en place par les provinces. Quelqu'un disait de venir à Ottawa pour demander au gouvernement fédéral de se débarrasser des normes provinciales, c'est un peu comme de chicaner quelqu'un chez Wendy's parce que votre Big Mac est trop froid. Ça ne fonctionne pas. Alors, ils sont sur le territoire de la ville d'Ottawa, donc la ville d'Ottawa, la police d'Ottawa doit faire son travail. C'est pas un territoire fédéral. Mais on est dans une impasse totale. Là. Les autres ne quitteront pas tant que vous ne reculez pas, puis là, vous ne voulez pas rencontrer. C'est la définition d'un impasse. Je pense qu'il y a des choses qui peuvent être faites, mais on n'allègera pas les normes sanitaires parce que 200 quelques personnes nous demandent de le faire, parce que c'est à peu près ce qui reste là. 200, 300 personnes. Il y a des millions et des millions de Canadiens qui se sont fait vacciner, qui ont obéi aux normes sanitaires et qui font exactement ce qu'on doit faire pour sortir de la pandémie. Mais ce ne sont pas ces gens-là.
Minister Guilbeault, you're no stranger to civil disobedience, but what do you think when you see this?
There's a very big difference between what I did as an activist and this. There's a world of difference between what I did and this.
What do you think about the conversation around calling in the military to perhaps move this by force?
This is not something. I mean, law and order is not done by the Army. That's not the function of the Army. Law and order is done by our police forces in Canada and in democracies all around the world.
Is there any assurance that Canadians need to know that there might not always be vaccine mandates? Beyond their concerns, the fact that these mandates have no real expiry date, let's say, for federal workers, for truckers that have to cross the border, is there any sort of off-ramp, essentially, for this vaccine mandate?
The only way that we get out of this is by getting as many people vaccinated as possible. That's how we make it through.
Is mandating people to do it the right way to go about it, especially when people are hesitant?
The mandates are for a very specific group of people. They're not for the entire population. My apologies, I have to go. Désolé. Merci beaucoup.
I don't know what it's going to take, but it's completely unacceptable. I mean, they're keeping the city under siege. People are really suffering and struggling. I mean, clearly, you know, we support democracy and ability for people to protest. What they're doing here, though, is completely unacceptable. They're putting a lot of people out of work. They're impacting people's mental health. This is going to impact people for a long time. And, you know, we're seeing that and people living with disabilities that can't get to their health appointments, can't get to their jobs. I mean, people are literally trapped here on this, you know, and then we're hearing that it's getting funding from outside the country. This is supported by Conservative MPs. It's absolutely ridiculous.
People think that the Army should be involved in. What do you think?
Well, I think that something has to be done because I'm talking to people that live downtown. They're afraid to come out of their homes right now. They can't get to work or their workplace is actually closed. And this is businesses that Conservatives say they're standing up for small business. Well, what about the small businesses down here? Where's the Conservative MP from Ottawa? Why isn't he standing up for people that live here? Just like the Alberta MP, why isn't he standing up for the people that live and work in Alberta? I mean, this is completely counter to their claim that they stand up for small business. This isn't happening right now. In fact, this is killing people in these communities.
Photo last night with in front of a truck.
Oh, it's so disturbing. I mean, if this is what they want to be known for standing up for a protest that really looks like a bunch of thugs to me, I mean, they're keeping people awake all night long. They're shutting down businesses. Seniors can't get to their health appointments. I had a taxi driver who gave me a ride from the airport. He had to drop a senior off 500 meters from his apartment. And, you know, an 80-year-old man. And the police had to get involved to help him get home. He didn't know how he was going to get back out, get his groceries. This is totally ridiculous. I mean, there's one thing to be said about protesting and demonstrating your right to protest. We support that. But this isn't that. This is keeping a Canadian city under siege. And for Conservative MPs to support that, they should be ashamed of themselves. This is not acceptable.
What do you think needs to happen to de-escalate?
Well, something has to be done, but Conservative MPs standing in front of this convoy that's holding up a city under siege, limiting seniors and people with disabilities from getting access to their health, to their food, to their jobs and employment, and shutting down small businesses, that's not helping diffuse the situation. That's absolutely gaslighting. And that's what they're doing. They're gaslighting a situation here that needs to bring the temperature down so that we can get a resolution to this. But by Conservative MPs going and putting their face next to this, is this the future of our country? Is this what protests are going to look like moving forward? I sure hope not. And I think Canadians generally agree with me that everybody deserves a right to protest and be heard. This isn't that. This is putting a major Canadian city under siege. Completely unacceptable. I got to get into question period.
Would declaring this protest illegal, like Jason Kenney did to the one in Coutts, Alberta, would that make a difference here?
Well, it is illegal. Right now, I've got to get in the House of Commons because people are dying of overdoses across this country. I tabled legislation to deal with that. I'm one of the first PMBs that this House is going to hear on that issue. Yesterday, the Prime Minister said that the toxic drug crisis was a health issue. Today, it's still a criminal issue. So I'm going to go in there and fight for the families that lost loved ones. That's why I'm here. I'm here to get work done. Instead of standing and gaslighting when there's major, not just crisis, but a health emergency taking place in our country that not enough people are talking about. That's why I'm here. Gord Johns, I'm the NDP critic for mental health and addictions. And this is not helping mental health, not just people in Ottawa, but across this country. So Conservative gaslighting in a situation like this is completely unacceptable. This is impacting people's mental health. We're all tired. We're all tired of the pandemic. We all can't wait for a lot of the restrictions that are put in place to be lifted. Not one of us can wait. But we need to be guided by medical health professionals. They're doing their best job, but this is not the right approach.
De-escalate the situation that we have just steps away from here.
I don't have the answer to that question. The Prime Minister should be answering those questions for Canadians right now. But what's escalating?
Well, I think there's cause for concern, sir. Would you not agree?
I'm not sure. All I've heard from the security experts is that things are going relatively well, and that's honestly to God, I ask them every day.
But I am paying attention to Ottawa residents that said they can't leave their homes, that businesses that can't open. Have been paying attention to those people who live in this neighborhood.
Well, I've been paying attention to Mission Matsqui Fraser Canyon, the riding in this country that has received more devastation in the last year than any other part of this country.
That's true.
That's totally
Yeah,
legitimate,
true.
I'm asking you about these
Yeah,
protests here.
and I said that is a question for security experts,
Right.
and we should be relying on our security experts to advise our officials to tell us what to do and advise the government what to do in this case. Those are the people that need to answer that. Thank you very much.
Quick leadership race?
L'affaire avec les manifestants qui sont là présentement, est-ce que c'est le temps d'employer une méthode plus forte, vous croyez?
Je pense que les manifestants se sont fait entendus. On a compris leur message et oui, je crois que c'est le temps d'y aller.
Mais comment ça va se
veut dire
terminer?
quoi,
Qu'est-ce
ça?
que ça va
C'est
prendre pour terminer? Parce que les protestataires, leurs leaders viennent de tenir un point de presse. Ils disent tant et aussi longtemps que le gouvernement ne fera pas marche arrière, on va rester là. Alors comment on règle ça?
Ben, je pense que nous sommes dans une démocratie. Je pense qu'il faut écouter les manifestants, il faut écouter tous les Canadiens et toutes les Canadiennes. Et je suis complètement d'accord qu'ils ont un message à faire passer. Là, leur message, elle est passée.
Est-ce que vous seriez à l'aise avec un déploiement de l'armée? Pensez-vous qu'on est rendu là?
Non.
Pourquoi? Mais pourquoi? Pouvez-vous élaborer sur le nom?
Downtown, the residential areas of Ottawa.
But more specifically to the point of the army, do you think it's time to call in the army to kind of put, things back in their regular order here?
Well, I think we need to work with our law enforcement officials. Ottawa Police Service is the one who's responsible for the well-being and the safety and security of the community, and the federal government has been working very closely with them. I've been in contact with the Prime Minister, with the Minister of Public Safety and Minister of Emergency Preparedness. Have also spoken with Chief Peter Saloli and Mayor Watson, and we've told them that any resources they need from a law enforcement different perspectives available so that we can keep this protest peaceful. And most importantly, ensure that residential areas and those residences and businesses are not impacted.
On the principle, you live in Ottawa Centre. You're the MP for Ottawa Centre. Would you be comfortable having soldiers patrol the city?
Well, I think this is a very different circumstance. This is a policing matter, and I think policing response is what's needed to end this protest in a non-violent fashion.
What are you hearing from your residents at this point?
My residents are tired. They're going through pretty much hell right now. For last 6 days, they've been hearing honking. People cannot sleep. There are people with some serious mental health issues who are suffering. I've heard from the Jewish members of my community who are rattled because they saw swastikas in their downtown. The racialized members of community seeing Confederate flags. There's a lot of trauma that people have suffered, and it's not going to be easy for them to just get over that quickly.
Do you have a message to other people in other neighborhoods that are saying we're going to come in downtown Ottawa and counter-protest? Is that going to be productive?
I don't think it's going to be helpful. I think we need to just all work together to make sure that this protest comes to an end. I know the members of community are just feeling that they're at the end, they need to do something. And I think the best thing they can do is find ways to support the residents of the downtown. But by staging counter-protest, I'm really not sure if that's going to help diffuse this particular protest and put an end to it.
What's the end game then? No army, no counter-protest. They're going to stay here forever. You guys don't want to meet with them. There's no end game.
Well, I think these protesters have to leave. I mean, yes, they came here to make a point. The point is heard. I think now they're losing the point because the residents of Ottawa Centre, even those who may have agreed with them, few of them, no longer agree with them and saying, you've made your point. Time to go back.
Is it time to ban hateful symbols? There's that private members bill before the House of Commons now.
Well, I mean, we always have to balance freedom of speech with hate speech, and I've always said this, and I've served as the Attorney General in the past here in Ontario, that freedom of speech does not include hate speech. And if there's hate speech that is meant to hurt people, to cause them harm, whether it's willful or not, is extremely problematic.
So it's a time. It's a time.
More accurate to describe it as an occupation. How do you see the situation right now, and what's the significance of that?
Well, I think certain parts, I can tell you, it's certain parts of my community members feel like they're living in a bit of an occupation because they can't move around, they can't leave. If they move around and they're wearing masks, they've been yelled at, they've been facing intimidation. Women don't feel safe. We heard from a women's shelter in my community, Cornerstone, that is talking about the stories in terms of women who've fled violence are feeling re-victimized. I mean, this is having a tremendous impact on a lot of people who've had difficult lives, and now they're being subjected to this. That's unacceptable.
Is there a role for the federal government in all this? If you
Well,
can answer looking that way.
Yeah. The federal government is working very closely with the City of Ottawa and the Ottawa Police Service, and there are federal resources that are available, we'll continue to work with them. As I said, I've spoken with the Prime Minister and ministers involved, and I understand that if more support, more resources are asked, that we will work closely with Ottawa Police and Ottawa City of Ottawa to make those resources available.
What about the Army, the military?
Well, as I was saying earlier, I think this is a policing matter. This is how we need to deal with, and all work together so we can end this as peacefully as possible.
Just in terms of funding, there is $15 million that's set aside over 5 years, I believe it is, for additional police resources by virtue of being in the capital. Do you think that's amount sufficient? Have you asked the government to make more funds available for this response?
Well, we as I understand, federal government has an agreement with the city of Ottawa, and if there is going to be more costs associated with this protest, then we'll work with them. Thank you.
That elected officials shouldn't be meeting with, in my example, Saskatchewanians who have traveled across the country to be here to send their message of, wanting the ability to work
So what about the mayor's assertion that you guys are actually fueling the
I
protest?
would actually suggest that the mayor, Mayor Jim Watson, contact the Prime Minister and encourage him to do what he can, if that's meeting with protesters, to have this to resolve.
Do you condone
But by meeting them, don't you encourage them?
So what's the key now for your new interim leader to unite the party?
Well, you know what, the mood was already 100% better when we found out Candace was going to be the interim leader. She'll do an awesome job. She's been on the leadership team, since I was elected, and she knows every position. So I think it'll be a seamless transition and a chance for a fresh start. Well, I mean, she has a lot more experience than me, but definitely I wanted to put my name forward. I think I have a lot to bring the party.
Are you still, you said yesterday you might be interested in a run at leadership. Are you still weighing that?
I'll wait until we see the rules, how many days this thing's going to go on, how much funds have to be raised and all that sort of thing. Who else is going to be in the race?
This disruption that has happened, of course, upending of the leadership of Mr. O'Toole, how does it affect the day-to-day of the official opposition in terms of holding the government to account? I know a lot of your colleagues have talked about this as the main priority, but a lot of this distraction now is taken away from that.
Well, immediately last night when Candace became the interim leader, she said, we're going to hit the ground running tomorrow. We've got question period, we've got opposition days. She knows how to do it, so she's going to lead us. We're going to continue to be a strong opposition and hold this government to account. Thanks.
First of all, how quickly would you like to have a new leader in place?
I think we should have a new leader in place by the fall. That's my personal preference. I think we need to have the permanent leader get in front of Canadians and unite the party and start working towards the next election right away.
Is that something that interests you?
No, not at all.
No. So who do you see in your crystal ball as the best person to lead?
I don't think one day after the position became vacant that I'll know who I'm going to support or who it should be, but I know there'll be lots of good people put their names forward for that job.
And why is the fall a good timing?
Well, I think it's going to take a few months to get it all set up, and we're in a minority parliament, so we need to get the new permanent leader in place as quickly as possible, but the process does take time.
What pitfalls do we need to avoid?
What pitfalls do we need to avoid? Oh, there's too many to name, I'm sure.
I mean, many commentators have said the parties...
Watson's leveled against some of your Saskatchewan colleagues for meeting with the convoy protesters.
The Liberal Mayor, Jim Watson? Yeah, I don't think I take that too seriously. I don't worry about that. He's, people from Saskatchewan here meeting with other Saskatchewanians. I think that should be expected.
What are the first steps Candace needs to take as leader?
What's that?
What are the first steps Ms. Bergen needs to take as leader?
Well, I think she's already, the caucus is united behind her. She's a known quantity. She's experienced. She's well respected. I think she'll be well on her way. She'll put together her team. She'll put together her shadow cabinet, and we'll all look forward to pulling on the rope for her.
How concerned are you, sir, about just the tone of this protest? I know on the substance, there's room for peaceful protests and legitimate grievances, but there are signs inciting hate that we've seen over the weekend. There are signs calling for politicians and media to be imprisoned. What do you make of that?
I think everyone has condemned the individuals who have taken things too far, but I think overall, the message which we're seeing, Canadians overall support the message that they're hearing here, that is, it's time to end these mandates, it's time to give Canadians their freedoms back. And so the small minority that has unfortunately gone too far have been rightly condemned, but the vast majority, I think, of these people are freedom-loving Canadians who simply want to get their lives back.
You're expecting a shadow cabinet shuffle?
Well, every leader I've known has put their own stamp on the shadow cabinet, so I don't know what Ms. Bergen will decide to do, but we'll support her in whatever it is. I got to get to QP. Thanks, guys.
Ron, how are you feeling about your new interim leader?
Oh, I support Candace.
What about the steps to unite the party? You said it's going to be a tough job. What's the key?
I don't know. That'll be up to the new leader.
Does there need to be a quick leadership race?
What's the key now?
C'est déjà très très tôt. J'ai hâte de voir dans les prochaines semaines qui va se présenter à nous, puis les offres qu'on va avoir. Ça va être intéressant. Fait que un nouveau printemps en perspective qui va être très intéressant pour les conservateurs. Ça fait que...
Il y a déjà des noms de candidats, là. On ne sait pas s'ils sont nécessairement intéressés, mais vous, est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un parmi eux qui vous intéresse, que ce soit M. McKay, il y en a qui parlent de Jean Charest aussi?
Il y a beaucoup de noms qui sont présentement, qui sont dévoilés. Mais par contre, il faut voir s'ils sont vraiment intéressés. Puis spéculer aujourd'hui est un petit peu trop tôt. Merci.
Sur vos collègues, il y a des collègues qui sont allés se faire photographier avec des camionneurs, dont M. Scheer, avec le pouce en l'air hier soir. Le maire d'Ottawa demande une excuse. Il dit que c'est inadmissible de faire ça. Vous en pensez quoi, vous?
Ben, je pense présentement qu'il serait peut-être le temps de faire de la place ici au centre-ville pour qu'on puisse reprendre une vie normale. Là. Le message est passé. On a le droit de manifester, mais on n'a pas le droit, je pense, d'exagérer nos manifestations. Merci.
Vous êtes d'accord avec le geste de vos collègues?
Non, je vous ai donné mon opinion personnelle.
What does your new interim leader have to do to unite the party?
I think we've got a lot of work to do ahead, but looking forward to getting back to work under her experienced parliamentary leadership.
What do you think will happen?
They're looking at this new poll that shows more than half of Canadians think that, you know, we should have boycotted the games. And just less than half think that they won't be tuning in to watch the Winter Games, and this is because of China's human rights record. Are you concerned that Canadians are not going to get behind your athletes?
I truly hope that this doesn't happen, because I have spoken with many athletes before they took flight to go to the Olympic Games, and they've made so many sacrifices in the last 2 years to train in very difficult conditions. They've adapted their life like all of us so that they can practice their discipline in the pandemic context, and they're so excited to represent us at the Olympic Games. So I really hope that the whole country unites behind our Team Canada, and I truly think also that it would be good for all of us. We've all been impacted by this pandemic. I think we're all tired of it. And we've seen last summer how the Tokyo Olympic Games had a huge impact on Canadians, or the Montreal Canadiens going to the Stanley Cup final. So sport has this power of uniting people, and I really hope that those Olympics play that role in Canada. Thank you.